Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. I'm your host, Ashton Forbes. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. Also, of course, happy Valentine's Day. As you can see here, I am celebrating. I've got my clothes on here. So for my sapiosexual ladies in the chat, hit up my OnlyFans after the live stream, you know, for something a little special. Just kidding, of course. Now, thank you, everybody, for being in the chat early today, guys. I got a lot of feedback that we haven't been talking about enough science, so decided to do another installment of our Free Energy Friday series. But as usual, before we get into that, we've got some other build-up side stories that we're going to look into and talk about. Now, the first thing, chat, let's get emo. That's emotional, as the kids would say. Let's get emo about this situation. The MH370 videos. Man, did the CIA mess up with these videos? How could they mess up a situation so badly? So I made a post earlier today, and instead of reading it, I'm just going to kind of do my own thing here. But, like, how could they record this? How could they let the recording, like, somehow slip out? Someone have access to this recording? And how did they not, like, come up with a better cover story for what happened to this plane? Like, I can't believe how much evidence exists that this plane got teleported away. The CIA or whoever's responsible for this, bro, what, like, how are they so dumb? And then their cover-up story is just, like, say that it went into the middle of the nowhere, into the middle of the South Indian Ocean. And then we have videos that release that have coordinates in them that show the real location of the plane. And it's like close to where they lost track of it. That's just wild to me. Like, this is the part where I'm just disappointed. I would have thought that going up against the CIA to reveal something like this would be, like, harder. You know, like, maybe they would take you out, or, like, they would, their disinfo ops would be better. But, like, they just buried themselves with this one. They just buried themselves with this. Yeah, why is the plane turning hard? It looks like it's trying to land in the ocean. It looks like it's trying to land in the ocean. So instead of, like, trying to come down like this, they're trying to, like, circle down and land, spiral down and land in the water. And then they get zapped away before that happens. So, I don't know, man. These videos really... Some people... This reminds me of another story I want to tell here, guys, at the beginning of this, is that... for some reason, one of the things that sticks out to me is some people early on would ask me if I've had an experience. And I guess I'm thinking about this because of the Dave Rossi interview with Jesse Michaels, and we're going to talk about that here next. But Dave wasn't afraid to talk about the fact that he's got a blue alien that gave him a download of how the physics works or something like that. I don't even really know the full story. He told me once, actually. Because I'm like, I don't care where it came from. I don't care how you figured it out. But people asked me early on if I've ever had a UFO experience. You're probably wondering right now, actually. The answer is no. I've never had a UFO experience. I've never had an alien experience. I've never had a ghost experience. Never had any of those experiences happen to me. I think that and not in all cases, but in some cases, people ask that question because they want to use it to discredit you. They want you to say, oh, well, you had this traumatic experience and therefore now you've been committed to this phony belief or something. I think that some people were trying to say that. Some people are now upset because they can tell that I'm not an experiencer. I don't respect experiencers enough. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Dave Rossi was on with Jesse Michaels. If you're not familiar with Dave Rossi, he is a defense contractor and engineer, and he's been a friend of mine now for over a year. He's been on the Hard Truths podcast, and I'm planning on having him come on again. And his interview with Jesse Michaels, not only was he not afraid to shy away from that, but he spoke about a lot of the topics that we've discussed on our live streams, the science, the physics, the engineering aspects, etc. But then all of a sudden, this happened. Dun, dun, dun. Wait for it.
Argument to be made that like the next Klaus Fuchs, you know, the guy that like stole the American atomic secrets, worked at Los Alamos from 1941 to 1950, went to the Soviets with all that stuff, is like somebody who just kind of runs their mouth on social media. And like it brings up, I don't know, I mean like they're like, it's like we're both, you know, friendly with Ashton Forbes, the MH370 stuff. And I'm not at all equating him to Klaus Fuchs.
This is definitely equated me to Klaus Fuchs. In fact, before he even said my name there, it felt like he was already talking about me. Klaus Fuchs. I mean, he's not wrong. I am disseminating classified secret technology that shouldn't probably be disseminated. But it's not my fault. A, I'm not the one that leaked it. B, everybody's telling me it's fake. So if it's fake, then it can't be secret classified information, right? It's only one or the other. So if it is secret classified information, somebody would have to tell me in order for me to know that. Just saying.
But I have these conversations with him about the MH370 videos. You know, these are these orbs teleporting the, you know, the plane, the Malaysian airplane. In 2014, it was this big news story. CNN was talking about it for 3 months. This plane went missing. Nobody knew where the plane. Some weird circumstances around the plane, and then you have this video come out that, you know, maybe it looks like these orbs just like teleported the plane. And it's really bizarre. And now he's getting into all sorts of free energy and, you know, exotic physics stuff. And I have these conversations with him, and he's like, so I think this can create a death weapon that will end the world, but it needs to come out. And I'm like, dude, I don't think either of us are smart enough to know and be high conviction that that's definitely the case. Like you hear things, you have intuitions around that. Maybe it is the case.
Yes, it is a death weapon, Jesse. And yes, like this, guys, I love, finally Jesse's coming out of his shell here. The one thing I want is just more honesty in the UFO community. Do I trust any of these people that are on mainstream TV or whatever? No. They're all trying to watch their image and their perception or what have you. Finally, Jesse's actually just being open. And what he's saying is 100% true. We've had those conversations. I've kind of vaguely spoken about the conversations I've had with Jesse to you guys before. And he was worried about what those implications were. Now, here's the pushback. Jesse there, and this was my impression of Jesse when we interacted. He's like, you can't possibly know that this could be a super death weapon. That was kind of he kept pushing back on like, how do you know though? Like what shows that this could be like a dangerous thing? And then if it is a dangerous thing, like, should you be revealing it? Okay, well, let's respond to those. One, absolutely, it's a doomsday weapon. No question, no doubt. I don't understand how anybody doesn't see it as that. Free energy, 0-point energy, ability to amplify energy. Well, what argument is there to be made that it's not a doomsday weapon? Anytime I hear the words amplify energy or exponentially increase energy or unlimited energy. The only thing I think in my mind is destruction, explosions. So absolutely, it can be done. And then when you get to enough energy or enough mass, because mass is energy, you create a literal black hole. So if you have unlimited energy, you can create a black hole. So I don't know. It's kind of odd to me that people like have struggle with that concept. Now, on the flip side, if you do believe that, why would you reveal it? Why would you reveal it? That's the real question that Jesse's bringing up there, right? Because I've said that it's real, and the answer is because I think that humanity deserves to know the truth about physics and how physics operates. Like we shouldn't be basically just ignorant cave people. If there is science out there, we deserve to know the truth about how the science works. Now, does that mean we deserve to know how to make a nuclear bomb? No, not necessarily. I'm not out here teaching people how to make a nuclear bomb. That's why if you watch my content, you'll see I do draw the line. I don't engineer stuff. I talk about the concepts, and I go pretty far into the concepts and watch other people engineer stuff, but you don't see me engineer it. So I do have some level of respect for keeping stuff secret. I'm not trying to teach people how to make bombs, but I do think that we should be able to know how the universe works. I mean, right? We should know that we should be allowed to know how the universe works. The problem is the universe might work in a way where it's so simple that once you understand how the universe works, you can engineer something pretty easily. I have a feeling that's part of the danger involved here. Now, also, to be a little bit more sarcastic, truthfully, you guys don't deserve free energy. You guys being the royal humanity. Humanity doesn't deserve free energy, frankly. They probably deserve to be slaves, sad as it is to say. The fact that we are that ignorant. And I'm not even worried about it because, like, truthfully, we're so much further behind. Like, if you are somebody who follows me, you're already so much more enlightened than you even realize. The vast majority of people out there are complete sheep, complete NPCs. There's more than you think, most likely, out there. So even blowing the lid off of this it's not even making a dent, honestly. It's shaping the narrative is great. We're doing something, and it's actually helping a little bit. But the people that have done this, hide this technology, the people that have done these black projects, they're not afraid. They're not afraid at all. Truth's not coming out. They know it's not coming out. So sorry to black pill you guys a little bit on a Valentine's Day, but it's the truth. Okay, Adam Kane. You should look into Israel as well. Guys, I don't do the like Israel, Palestine thing. People are deeply emotionally connected to one side or the other of that conflict, and I'm not. But because I'm so unbiased, what I will say is I do think it's really interesting that like a lot of Nobel Prize winners, a disproportionate number are Israeli, and the United States is connected to Israel. And it does make me wonder how we share or where some of the breakthroughs and some of the science and the physics and technology come from. But yeah, that 60 Minutes Mossad clip, I was actually just thinking about that again earlier today as well. That like they control the whole reality. Because I saw Eric Weinstein, I forget how to say his last name. He was reacting to that clip, and that was going viral itself. And he was saying this is how the intelligence communities really operate. Like they think they're above everything else, and the truth is they are. They do think that, and honestly, they are. I mean, they're above the law. I know that's not what we want to believe to be true, but they are. And they know they are. And until we change something, they'll continue to be above the law. Okay, let's switch gears here now. Oh, I didn't even play the whole clip, did I?
But if you think that's the case and that is your intuition, and you think this could be extremely dangerous and dual use, it's really irresponsible to like just put a lot of this stuff out willy-nilly. And it's the reason why with the Townsend Brown stuff that I put out, I'm like, that's like, you know, it's this 70-year snapshot from a long time ago, but I'm like, I'd love to know if somebody was like, you know, hey, if this is there's one line from a biography of Townsend Brown, you know, it's Paul Shatskin book, The Man Who Mastered Gravity, where it's, you know, this will make a thermonuclear bomb look like a child's firecracker.
Yes.
And
yes,
you hear that, and I'm like, I don't know if to take that at face value.
Chat, you know what's coming, right? Like, I have like a mind meld with Dave Rossi. Like, I knew what was coming right here. Like, I knew that the fact, like, for some reason, like, I don't know, we're on the same wavelength or whatever, but like, the moment that you hear that, you think of the quote about the coffee cup with how much energy there is.
But if I heard that was the case, I would never touch this stuff again.
And you've hit the nail on the head with regards to what I was trying to convey to you just now. That's exactly the problem.
So, but are you high conviction that these things could be weaponized in like an world catastrophic way? Or
I am of high I would put money on it.
Really?
I would put money on it.
That's so. Then what?
I don't say that proudly.
So what do we do? Because on the
so it's like, what do you guys want, man? Anybody that understands that you can amplify energy or that free energy is real, of course it's a doomsday weapon. What are you guys thinking about? Like, come on, man. Wake up. Of course it's a doomsday weapon. Of course it's the national security issue around UFO or alien technology or just advanced technology, whatever you want to think of it. It's like, we can't be naive here and pretend like we're just going to get disclosure when there's like this magical technology that can destroy the solar system is at play here. It's a lot more complicated than aliens exist. A lot more complicated. It's kind of like, guys, imagine for my, I don't know about a great Marvel movie, but just imagine like sci-fi movie in general, right? They're always fighting over like the one magical, like the one ring in Lord of the Rings, right? They're always fighting over the one thing that has this tremendous potential. And there can be giant wars over it. That's not happening over aliens. It is happening over alien technology, though. Right? So when we look at this UFO phenomenon, if you think it's connected to aliens, even if it's not connected to aliens, if it does lead us to a technology that's beyond where we're at right now, the only logical conclusion you can make is that people are going to be fighting over it. And whoever gets it first wins. Yeah, it's the Infinity Stones. You know what? Thank you, Rebecca. And honestly, Rebecca, shout out to you. Unless you're a different Rebecca, we might have like a pig Rebecca and a regular Rebecca. That wasn't to put you down, Rebecca. There's a pig James and there's a regular James in the chat because there's a lot of Jameses. Anyway, I digress. It is like the Infinity Stones. And Rebecca, I remember your name. You've given a lot of great feedback because whoever gets the Infinity Stones, they win. That's like this technology as well. And the problem is, if you're not willing to do what it takes to monopolize the technology, then the other people are going to catch up and they're going to start using the technology on you. They're going to start using it on you. I actually wonder if I do have the 60 minutes clip. I was wondering if I had it. I was going to play it earlier. But yeah, I'll just kind of, this is the gist of the 60 minutes clip. Okay, get ready for this. Pretend that I'm a hooded figure in all black with a voice changer and in the shadows. And I just come out and I'm like, we have full control over the perception that is laid to the people. And they believe the narrative that we build. We are the producers. We are the actors. We are the ones who tell the story of what you are going to believe. Basically like that. That's how the intelligence community operates. So if you want to understand what happened to MH370, you can't be thinking in normie mindsets in terms of like suicidal air pilots and like jihadi terrorists with box cutters or whatever. You need to be thinking in terms of like, what does the most psychopathic, like out of control intelligence community, what kind of sick like movie Saw level like plot have they put together? There you go. That's how you have to be thinking about it. Now, Oh, there's one last part of this, and then I don't think there's anything.
On one hand, you have interstellar travel, and like that'd be great if we could get that, right? And you have like all these cool updates you could get.
Well, I think I don't want to. Here's the thing: I don't want to. I wish I could sit here and say, Jesse, I have an alternative plan. I don't. With that said, I think that what we're seeing now with the discussion right now of metamaterials, and again, I'm not trying to say that they're not. I'm not trying to say they're worthless. There's a lot of value, especially layered semiconductors and blah blah blah. But and mixed with different alloys and all that. But the point I'm trying to make is that I think that's why the metamaterial angle was taken. With regards to always saying we don't know how the physics of it works, and there's we do know how it works. I'll blatantly say it. We know exactly how it works.
Interesting that Dave there also mentions the metamaterials are probably a distraction as well. This idea that we have to have these alien metamaterials to produce the science, no, we don't need that. The plasma kind of tells us that it's a more basic thing that we just need to understand about the universe. And that we've figured it out. They've figured it out. They've had it figured out for a long time. For Dave to say that, it's pretty significant in my mind. Just because I know Dave and I know the people that Dave hangs out with. Like that whole story about Dave got selected or whatever from that interview, that's true. I don't know how it's true or why it's true. I have a hard time reconciling it, but I know for a fact that it's true. I just don't understand how. So I don't know. Maybe there are government people out there looking for people they think have been like, reincarnated or touched by psychic aliens or something like that. Or who knows? Maybe, like, truthfully, guys, I'm pretty sure that Dave Rossi is some kind of experiment where we like reverse the aging process. Like he's probably some famous historical guy, like scientist that like reversed aging from like 90 years old. And now he's like a 25-year-old or however old he is, 26. Like truthfully, no one can convince me otherwise. I would tell him straight to his face, honestly, too, guys. So if you tattle on me, I'll tell him. Because there's just no way. I just cannot. I would refuse to believe that someone can know as much as he knows about physics and engineering. So, if you're not interested in that interview before, you should check out the rest of it. It's a good discussion, and it talks about a lot of the concepts that we've discussed. In fact, we might do a separate live stream all about it. I'm not even kidding, guys. He definitely is. It's just there's just no way. There's no way, man. I think that the blue alien thing is just a cover story. Like, he didn't actually talk to a blue alien. He says that because then it discredits him and he intentionally discredits himself so that people are like, oh, that's the guy that says he talked to a blue alien. But then no one looks into the fact that he's like this other person that like reverse aged himself. It's honestly a genius cover story. And it's also similar to the alien psyop, right? Where you can be like, oh, yeah, I had a blue alien psychically downloaded the information into my mind. He. But in reality, like, you just took some reverse aging process and you had to change your identity. And if anyone looks into it, they'll figure it out. But since you're like just some dude talking about blue aliens, no one really pays attention. Right? Not smart, man. It's the same thing they're doing with the alien psyop. I mean, they're basically aliens can be real, but they're also trying to like cover it up and blame them and explicitly say that like, oh, we can't have figured this out. I think in that same interview, Dave may say something like that as well. I mean, he basically did right there. He says he knows we figured it out. So that's where the battle lines are drawn, guys. The battle lines are basically drawn on could we have figured it out ourselves versus does it have to be aliens in these UFOs that are flying around. And I'm glad that we all understand which side we're on. And I don't think it has to be like, it's not adversarial. It's just, different political opinions on the topic. Okay. I want to give a shout out or a rest in peace to Harold Malmgren. I just butchered his last name. Malmgren. Harold Malmgren. He advised a bunch of presidents. Apparently, he stopped us from going to thermonuclear war, stopped us from firing the missiles, passed away today, Valentine's Day. 90 years old, legendary guy. Rest in peace, sir. Rest in peace. We'll do our best to keep this planet safe and prevent us from destroying ourselves with zero-point energy technology. Oh, also, he probably knew about, no, I'm just going to say it. He knew about zero-point energy technology as well. Those old school guys, man, literally went to his grave without telling the world the truth. And the crazy part was, in his last few months, he started opening up on social media. Go look at his Twitter posts, guys. He started opening up, especially on the UFO topic. He was like, yep, it's real. It's out there. And but he never really broke national security. And the reason why I bring that up is because people think that, like, oh, people would be blurbing out all the time, right? But they don't. They don't talk. They go to their grave knowing that we've got magical technology. What time to be alive. And I just saw this. I have to comment on this as well. Sorry, I didn't realize we had so much stuff to comment on here today, chat. The official, this is 100% confirmed, chat. The official insignia of the declassification task force. Boom, there it is. Ba-dow. Wow. Wow, such insignia, chat. Such insignia. That is clearly a pink unicorn with rocket boots. These are rocket boots. And then a floaty egg. And this, guys, a lot of people didn't know this. True fact. Unicorns are born out of eggs. Yeah, true. It's true. Check it. Fact check it. When you get so powerful that you have magical abilities like unicorns do, actually you stop giving live birth and it actually goes back to eggs. This is the origin story of UFO disclosure, chat. A unicorn, pink unicorn, came down with rocket boots and a UFO unicorn egg, orb egg. And this is that's how disclosure is going to happen, chat. Also, the second meaning on why it's pink, because technically you have to be a left-handed gay male to have the most powerful connection to the psychic alien eggs. Just saying. That's what people are saying, chat. That's what people are saying. If you're mad at that information, just be mad at what people are saying out there. Okay, let's get serious now. This is actually a real question that Eric Burleson asked Lou Elizondo after the UFO hearing that happened in November. Eric Burleson had a list of questions. So shout out to Eric Burleson. Hey, you want to come on my podcast, Mr. Congressman? I want to have another thing on my list of things that I've done with podcasts. I've talked to Harvard physicists. I've talked to Navy engineers. Now I need to have on my checklist United States congressmen. So someone get Eric Burleson to pay attention while I glaze him here. So great questions by Congressman Eric Burleson. Big shout out to him, everybody. He's asked, and this was in writing. This is why we didn't see it. Has the United States government or defense contractors made new breakthroughs in physics that are currently undisclosed to the general public, including at the university level? Response by Lou Elizondo: yes. What? So, can I ask a follow-up question? Is it 0-point energy? Let's just get right to the point. Is it 0-point energy? Yes or no? If it's not, what is it? Cold fusion? Like, how are we playing word games with this? Because when anybody is asked what the energy source is for UFOs, it's always, the answer is always either some form of cold fusion or 0-point energy. Every single time. Every single time. Or actually, sometimes people say element, whatever, 115. Whatever the hell that's supposed to mean. But maybe, whatever. So, man, sorry, I just had to comment on this because This reminded me of the Mark Andreessen clip. I think other people have pointed this out as well, actually, but wait. Oh, wait. I have a different clip of Mark Andreessen. Oh, I don't know what actually I called that clip. Anyway, there's a clip of Mark Andreessen out there saying that we basically been hiding physics and we've been classified it and what have you. And it's like, and we're going to do it with AI as well. Like, why would we have to classify AI? Let me just throw that out there for you, chat. Why would we have to classify AI? I'll find the only reason why I can think we would have to classify AI is if AI had reached we had reached artificial general intelligence. That's the only reason why. What else would we be classifying about AI? That doesn't even make sense, right? Anyone in the chat have any ideas? I think there actually might be a legit connection between AI and this UFO phenomenon. It's just, it seems hard for me to believe that there isn't. Yeah, I think I found the clip. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Hey, look, it's Tupacabra, chat.
The Cold War, we classified entire areas of physics and took them out of the research community, and like entire branches of physics basically went dark and didn't proceed.
That would be this crazy, egregious.
It would change our entire concept of who we are if somebody kept fundamental physics secret in the years since we became capable of exploding fusion devices. Right. I would grab a pitchfork and a tiki torch, and I would march on the National Science Foundation.
You know, they literally said, well, you know, during the Cold War.
Okay, let's close this. Okay, so now two more things. One more thing, and then we get to our main event, everybody. Thank you for hanging in there on this Friday night once again. Valentine's Day. I'm just making sure I didn't miss anything. Oh, yeah, there's this sketchy-ass badge. A lifetime of silence behind the green door. But we spoke about that last time, so I don't think we need to address that right now. This plasma engine. Okay, so there is one of the other stories. A lot of you guys ping me on stuff, and honestly, most of it pretty good. Thanks. Keep pinging me on stuff, everybody. You're doing a great job. I appreciate it. Oh, let me hit up these donos as well real quick. Original time traveler. Were the orbs made to destroy interballistic missiles? I think yes, probably. Good guess. I would think so too. Now, do I know? I don't know. I didn't build the orbs, but maybe. That would be, I would use them to stop hypersonic missiles. You could use them to stop asteroids. I'm not afraid of asteroids anymore. Certainly not small ones. Lil Lun, thank you for that super sticker. Appreciate you. Thank you, Lil Lun. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, chat. Oh, also, should we do some comedy? No, I already did a little bit. Oh, yeah. Do you guys think Lou Elizondo has more aura than I do? Chat, the kids are saying that people have aura, and I had to look it up to figure out what it means. And it means, like, I guess they're like reality is starting to blend with like anime. And so apparently, like, how much power you exude is like your aura or something like that. Okay, yeah, already people are already saying that Lou does not have as much aura as I do. Okay, but good. That makes me feel better, chat. That makes me feel. I feel like he doesn't really have much aura either. Like when you see him on TV, it kind of looks like a sack of potatoes. Like you just barely. You're like really talking to a real person, or is it like a typewriter? Yeah, I don't know. No disrespect, guys, because a lot of people too are saying like, "Oh, he's a plant. He's whatever." Yeah, Lou Elizondo is like a government guy. I don't think he's ever claimed not to be. He said straight up that he's on the side of national security. But you know, you don't have to be wrong to be, or you know, you can be a good guy and still be on the side of hiding dangerous physics. That's totally fine. The beauty of this topic, free energy, free energy is really the topic of the night. The beauty of the topic of free energy is that there's no wrong side. That's why it's a political issue. It's like, do you believe that humanity should have free energy or not? Well, some people do and some people don't. Some people think we should be living in a communist hellhole. Other people believe in freedom. It is what it is, chat. That's the way of life we live in. So for me, you know, and I've already spoken about this many times and at the beginning of this, but I'll reiterate my position real quick. I think we should just roll the dice. I think that we're not going to all of a sudden become some different species, some benevolent species overnight. If 0 point energy, if free energy technology means we have to change our civilization, then let's stop hiding it and let's just change our civilization. That's what we got to do, right? Like real talk, chat. Real talk. Free energy technology exists. Forget aliens. We got bigger fish to fry. We got to redo our entire basis of our civilization is based on money. And now money doesn't mean anything anymore. Or certainly not what it meant before. So we got to get at this. We got to start working on this like right now. Immediately. And I mean, how long were they planning on hiding this stuff? When you look at the MH370 videos, this technology is like, it's not just like 20 years beyond where we're at right now. You show me us teleporting an airplane with some floating orbs. Like that technology, like in my mind, I'm like, that's like 1,000 years we're beyond where we're at. That's like Futurama. What am I looking at here? How can that all be real? If you don't know what I'm talking about, here's the reference. Like, how long were they planning on hiding this technology from us? What bugs me out the most is that this isn't aliens. If this was aliens, I could at least be like, okay, well, the aliens, of course, have alien technology. But the fact that this is an operation, I'm like, wait, why we have the alien technology? When the hell are you going to tell us about this shit? You can't leave this hidden. Like, we're going to hide this for 250 years and then hope that, like, humanity becomes, like, enlightened or some shit? I actually think that was their plan. Can you believe that, chat? This is how dumb these people are. These are the same people that didn't just blame the Iranians. This is what I'm talking about. This is why when you guys are like, hey, why do you call it woke disclosure? One of the bigger questions, people are like, why do you call it woke disclosure? Well, let me explain to you why. Because the people's answer for what to do with this UFO phenomenon, the people in charge right now, the main narrative, their answer is to kick the can down the road and tell people that it's aliens and hope that, like, aliens existing makes everybody just become, like, kumbaya benevolent so that when they do reveal the technology, we won't destroy ourselves. That's like that's their big play. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. There's no way that's going to work. We're never going to change. So why are we bothering with that plan at all? And this is what I'm talking about. Like the CIA said, like, oh, the plane just flew into the South Indian Ocean. Well, that's the dumbest plan ever. You have 2 Iranians on board MH370. Confirmed. Everybody agrees there's 2 Iranians on board MH370. They're on fake passports, and they've changed their facial appearance to look like the people whose stolen passports they're riding on. You should have blamed them for the plane disappearing. How did they not blame those people? Why is our CIA so stupid? We have the dumbest plans ever. And you might argue, well, the MH370 cover-up was good because, look, everybody thinks it crashed into the ocean and that it was a suicidal pilot. Yeah, but like the moment you look into it, you realize it was like the dumbest cover-up, like the worst cover-up ever. Like it's obvious there was a cover-up at play the moment you look into it at all. And then you're like, oh, you look at everyone's, like the way people reacted under that lens, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. This all makes sense. Just disappointing, chat. Hide free energy from the world? God, these people are stupid as shit. Okay, sorry, chat. I went on a little side rant. You know what happens, especially on a Friday. Thank you, Chris Mellon is a nod. Balls indeed. Thank you. And IF. Check out JRE. Oh, yeah, Brett Weinstein. At 1 minute in, they talk about the plasma orbs. Yeah, so I actually know already what they're talking about because I've talked about it several times. They're talking about the talking plasma, the Forbes articles. I've read the articles. I've dug into all of it. There's a reason why people call me a plasma expert, even though I'm not really, but because I do, I read all the things about it. So and that's going to be relevant. Actually, I'm glad you brought this up. So after our next topic, this is going to be relevant because we're going to watch a video that's going to basically explain how you can tune frequency and what that can do in an electric circuit. And this is what they're doing with the talking plasmas. They have some way to manipulate the frequency extremely rapidly. And they can make the plasma talk to people and what have you. What people have not figured out, what the Brett Weinsteins have not figured out, is that we've figured out that not only through the same idea of resonance and wavelength and standing waves, we can make a ball plasma that is coherent, self-sustaining, float around freely. That's the big secret. That's what they're not talking about. They're happy to talk about, well, we can make this ball plasma that talks to you. But everyone wants to think it's like a hologram. What do you mean it's a hologram? What are you talking about? It's like saying that fire is a hologram. No, fire is going to burn the shit out of you. It's very real. It's a very real. There's energy there. It's very real. Okay. Now, I did want to briefly talk about this Russian plasma engine. So a bunch of you guys linked this to me. And there's a bunch of articles, but I'm just going to show this one. Russia claims new plasma-based engine could cut Mars travel time to just 30 days. Now, as normal, most people are like, no, Russia's full of crap, Russian disinformation, blah, blah, blah. State-owned Roscom, they developed a prototype of a plasma electric rocket that could reach Mars in just 30 to 60 days. The rocket, which uses hydrogen as fuel, has the potential to revolutionize spaceflight, but it's very early in its development. In most rocket engines, liquid hydrogen fuel and liquid oxygen oxidizer are pumped into a combustion chamber where they ignite and produce hot exhaust to propel, aka rockets, explosions, big bang, go boom. A plasma rocket is a type of electric propulsion system that uses two electrodes. When charged particles are moved between the electrodes and a high voltage is applied, the current creates a magnetic field that pushes the particles out of the engine. The plasma receives a directed motion and creates a thrust as a result. Whoa. Okay. Well, now I see why this is exciting. If you don't see why this is exciting, well, you probably haven't been watching enough of my content. Because now this is not a combustion engine, this is an electric engine. And I think it's safe to say that there's no propellant as well. Because it's just shooting at plasma. So it's using ions as propulsion. At least that's what, I think it was a different one, or was it this one? Yeah. It's basically creating the plasma. And what happens when we create a plasma? We take a hydrogen atom and we rip the electron off the hydrogen atom. And that gives us one electron that's free and a positively charged ion. And so what we just read is it says it's using hydrogen as the fuel. And it's creating this ionic, which is an ion that's left behind, pulling the electron off, creating this ionic thrust using plasma. So right off the bat, I have a really good idea of what this is going to look like. You can say, Ashton, how could you possibly know that? You just read 5 seconds of an article. You know too, chat. If you've been watching my live streams or watching my content at all, you already have a really good idea of what it looks like. Hold on, my things are so tiny. How do I make these bigger? Which one is it? Here it is. Probably looks a lot like this. That right there is the ENG8 cold fusion plasma cell. Remember, this is the one for the company that I've been talking about. Now, why am I excited about this company? Because this company is doing that exact same thing that you just heard me describe in that news article. They're using hydrogen as their fuel, and it can be the hydrogen in water or just in air. And they are ripping the electron off the hydrogen, and they are creating this cold plasma. And it's producing electrical overunity, they claim. This is the same concept as Ken Shoulders' exotic vacuum objects. In fact, these people reference Ken Shoulders and his exotic vacuum objects. And they say that's what they're using. So Ken Shoulders has said that these can be used for propulsion. That's what the Russians seem to be doing. They can be used for energy. That's what these guys right here are doing. And Ken Shoulders also said they can be used for teleportation. Teleportation, making something go somewhere else. So this article is pretty incredible because it's making some pretty powerful claims. Now, I looked up some of the math that they were talking about in terms of how powerful this is, and I think they said it's somewhere around, it's like 3 times more powerful than where conventional physics thinks that this can go. So it's a lot more powerful than already what conventional physics. Now, the part for me here is they're claiming they use hydrogen, but what does that mean? Is there a hydrogen tank on board, or where's the hydrogen coming from that they're using in this engine? I'd be curious to see exactly how it looks. And now this is an engine too, where this engine is not going to fly off into outer space. You have to fly it into outer space. But here's the rub, guys, and this is actually very important to understand from a physics perspective. So please pay attention if you're not. That a conventional rocket is going to use all its propellant up. It's going to run out of fuel, and then you're just going at whatever speed you were able to achieve. Okay, so you accelerate, and then whatever speed you got to, boom. With an electric engine and rocket, essentially with those, you have a very low amount of acceleration, but the low amount of acceleration is persistent. It's constant. So what you do is if I'm going from Earth over here, let's say this is Earth, and I'm going to go over here to Mars, I'm going to accelerate until I get halfway. And when I get halfway, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to start decelerating so that when I get to Mars, I get there at rest, at 0 speed. And the plasma engines are much more efficient in outer space compared to a conventional rocket. But for getting into outer space, not as conventional. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that this rocket, this Russian rocket thing, is extremely similar to the EM drive, chat. Oh, I wasn't sharing my screen. That would have been a lot more suspenseful if I was sharing my screen. The EM drive, chat. It's very similar to the EM drive. Now, the only difference is that they're not claiming to have no input. In fact, maybe the EM drive doesn't claim no input. But the basic idea is the same. High voltage. Use high voltage and you create an asymmetrical system like you have in this case with the cone. So if you don't understand the EM drive, let me explain it to you like this. The Casimir effect, put the plates together, what happens? They come together. Okay, well, what happens with the same concept, but you do this? If you separate the plates at the bottom and keep them close at the top, you're going to have an asymmetrical force. I believe the force would go up towards the narrow end of the cavity. So that's the same idea as what can the EM drive do in terms of why the EM drive is this weird shape. Do you see right here? So this has got me excited now because it's very similar to the EM drive. It's very similar to a lot of what other physics is out there in terms of cold fusion and what I've seen from other companies. So I'm very curious to see what comes of this. What else did it say? Just the last part. Oh, that's it. So there's not a lot of information known about it right now. The last thing I want to say on the plasma rocket thing is most likely we are very, very far ahead of Russia. So if Russia is claiming to have something, we probably had it for a while. And if you doubt me, you know what? I'll just prove it. I don't like to not bring the receipts. I hate when people are just like say stories and they say, well, I can't say why I know. I'm just going to show you. Let's look up, let's say, the lead field engineer for NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. Let's just look up who that person is. And if you think that was a very specific thing to guess, yes, this was very specific for a reason. At least used to be a guy named Richard Eskridge. He had a daughter named Amy Eskridge. So if you look up his scientific papers, pulsed plasma thruster, single and repetitive pulse conical cone-shaped theta-pinched inductive pulsed plasma thruster performance, 2015. This is right here. I mean, I did not expect it to be like literally the exact same name as what we were just looking at. I knew he did similar stuff, but this is even more on the money than what I expected. I mean, actually, that first paper right there on the list is basically the whole live stream. I'm about to show you the very next thing. I'm going to show you pulsed current amplification and pulsed voltage, or I don't know, magnetic induction, something or other. Anyway, so, and here's another one, prototype plasmoid thruster. Like these, look, this is 2006. Fusion ignition rocket with, okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to point out to you is NASA's been researching this for a very long time. So whatever you think Russia has, we are ahead of them. Some people try to think that Russia or China are ahead of us. You're out your mind. But they don't have to be ahead of us in order for them to be a threat. Not even close. Okay, guys, last thing for tonight, but it's a longer one. Okay, everybody wanted more information on free energy. I knew that was me, Mark Scott. I saw the color pop up. Happy Friday, Mark Scott. Will you be my Valentine? Thank you very much, brother. Appreciate you. Huge donation. You're a very generous person. Thank you very much, Mark. It's awesome. Okay. I previously showed this video. Parametric oscillations.
Our variable inductor into the circuit, the capacitor only needs a minuscule amount of latent charge, as even any dead capacitor will have some latent charge. The process of exponential growth begins, and after a short amount of time, the current begins to take off. And since the current must be constant through all the elements, we see that the voltage across the resistor takes off as well. This means that real power is being generated in the system and is able to do real work, creating heat through the resistor.
Okay, so that was a snip of a video that we looked at in the past where we looked at this idea of amplification of energy. Sal Pais has spoken about it multiple times now, including on my interviews and on the interview that we watched last week or 2 weeks ago. And he has always said, look at equations 7, 8, and 9 in the magnetically confined fusion reaction patent. And so I looked at it, and in that patent, it speaks to amplification of energy and amplification of the magnetic field using increased angular frequency or vibration. Increased frequency, increased spin, and increased vibration. Okay. So what is that? From a conceptual standpoint, it's like going like this. Really fast. And the faster you do it, the more energy you get. Seems logical. Seems like a logical thought process. So I found this other video. Where is it? By this guy, Master Evo. So I don't know if he's got some background, what have you. Some people are going to say, probably come at me, say, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I have seen other videos of this guy that seemed like an impartial guy and he knew what he was talking about. You know, his credentials seem legit, real engineer, what have you. And so I decided to watch the video, and it seems to help. It's pretty complicated, honestly, probably a little bit above my pay grades, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys. But I think that it teaches us more information about this idea of amplifying current using a pulsed input. And that's exactly what you just saw from the Richard Eskridge paper, and what a lot of people, when you look up free energy, pulsed current, pulses or voltage pulses seem to be a big factor, because a pulse creates a frequency. Boom, 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 boom. Kind of like music. So if these concepts are difficult for you to understand, well, hopefully today this video will help you out a little bit. Hopefully they will help you out. So this is what the description is. A voltage impulse, back EMF, is used to amplify current up to 50 amps and to produce an output. That's pretty bold claim. This video has 15,000 views, and it's only been out there for a few months. Truthfully, I don't fully understand the concept of back EMF, but does seem to be a big factor in all of this. We might skip ahead through parts of this, but I'm just gonna let this play out. Okay, so shout out, and you can find the full link to the video, Master Evo. You can find the full link in the description if you guys want.
A back EMF, or better said, a voltage impulse, can be used to amplify current to a very high value with relatively small amounts of input power. This is done with a unique resonance system that I will show and explain to you in this video. Furthermore, I show that an output can be produced into a resistive load that has voltage and current in phase.
So right off the bat there, I mean, sounds to me like he's explaining free energy. Is that what it sounded like to you? Let's just replay the first 20 seconds of this.
A back EMF, or better said, a voltage impulse, can be used to amplify current to a very high value with relatively small amounts of input power. This is done with a unique resonance system that I will show and explain to you.
So what did I just show you guys right there as well is that right before this, we just showed you how you could amplify energy, you know, using this kind of pulse system. But in that parametric oscillations, they use a slightly different configuration, but same idea.
In this video. Furthermore, I show that an output can be produced into a resistive load that has voltage and current in phase.
Okay, so let's take a look. So here's what his design is, guys. I'm just going to let him talk to it.
He is switched on and off by a MOSFET, which then produces a voltage impulse. The other winding of the CMC is connected with a diode that passes the negative voltage to ground, so that the positive impulse will be unipolar and stop ringing. This is because the two CMC windings together are counterwound and have thus a zero inductance for the negative voltage to pass to the ground. This is the schematic of the whole setup. On the right is the...
Okay, so for my debunker people in the chat, go ahead and check that out. Yeah, JK Philly fans kind of on it for me. Back EMF is the collapse of the magnetic field. Okay. Sometimes called flyback voltage. So you imagine if you power something on, you turn your switch on, the current runs through it. But it takes some time for the current to get through the whole circuit. So when you turn it off, the opposite must be true as well, right? Think about that for a second. This is how I've thought about it. Maybe I'm not thinking about it correctly, but the way I think about it is like, okay, when I turn something on, if I just, you can use a normie perception of energy for now. The energy is flowing through the wires, we'll imagine, and it takes a split second for it to get all the way through the wires. So when it turns off, for it to drain through the wires, it should also take another split second. This is the concept. Okay, now I'm going to pulse this off or on. So I'm turning on my magnetic field, and then my magnetic field's going to collapse when I turn it off. But there's still some force there of that happening. So this idea of free energy, when you're engineering your circuit, the back end, what are you trying to do? What you're trying to do is you're trying to capture that energy, that collapse, and use it in a meaningful way. So what do you want to do? You want to reroute that collapsing energy somewhere else. Reroute it somewhere else and use it productively. If you can do that, free energy. Real talk. Okay, let's go back to our video. So I'm pretty excited about this because this is true. I mean, we're listening to it here. And the other last thing I want to say about this is a lot of people say you should make your stuff open source. You should make it publicly available. That's what I'm doing right now. And I'm showing you guys, the people who I think are credible, and I'm showing you this guy. We're looking at a literal schematic. There's your schematic for amplifying energy. So what's stopping people out there from doing it? What's stopping anyone or me or for anyone else from doing it? Because just being able to show that it's possible, like also look how complicated this is. I consider myself a pretty smart guy. Electrical engineering, maybe it's just not my, natural area of talent. I don't know. This stuff is complicated. So this is the part where it's like, you can't just have a 1, 2, 3 step. If you show this, someone's like, show me how to make a free energy device. And I go, okay, here you go. Here's first step. And I show them this schematic. They're going to have no idea. This is the problem. Is that it's way too complicated for 99.999% of people. So hiding it ends up actually just being easy. Because anyone that can figure it out, just keep it for yourself.
The high voltage transformer that is connected to the... Now I will continue with the first experiment, whereby I tune the system without a load and without an impulse. It is important to remember it's fixed.
Step 1, remove all parallel capacity from the high current coil. Step 2, tune the high voltage coil into its resonant frequency. Step 3, tune the high current coil to that resonant frequency by adding parallel capacity. Step 4, tune the phase angle of the impulse to the positive voltage maximum.
This is the setup. I've got my PCB here, which has all the control.
Okay, so I'm going to skip through the setup part. Let's just get to the juice.
From there on, it goes towards the load. All the other power supply units and electronics are not earth grounded, so they're floating. And that means that I'm fluctuate. And I'm now going to turn the system on, but first what I'll do is remove all the capacity so that the parallel resonant...
Okay, so if you guys are not familiar with what is happening here, this guy has built a circuit, he's built a system, and the objective here is to show that we can amplify current, electricity, through a pulsed voltage charge. The concept of which how this could be possible, how we could do this, would be that we're going to take advantage of back EMF, the collapsing magnetic field, through an intelligent design of our electronic circuit. So I'm going to let this play for a second and let my dog in because she's upset. Be right back.
High current coil is not tuned. It is now purely the coil and there is no capacity in parallel. And that makes it easy to tune the high voltage coil because that is step 1 and that's what I'm going to do now. I'll turn on the high voltage coil on the oscilloscope, which is the yellow trace. I'll give it some voltage and I'll adjust the time base because that wasn't set correctly. So here we can see the high voltage.
Okay, we got lines
right now. I can easily produce around 400 volts. Let me remind you that that voltage is peak to peak. So 400 volts peak to peak current probe. And as you can see, there's barely any current flowing because it is not tuned. It is not resonant. So it will not interact.
Okay, so we've got our yellow voltage and we've got our green current.
With the displacement current of that high voltage coil. The displacement current is coupled, capacitive coupled between the high current coil and the high voltage coil. And therefore, I can produce a magnetic current in that high current coil if I tune it correctly. And I will do so now by adding capacity. And these switches are 100 nanofarads per time. So 300, 400, 500, 600, 700,
adding magnetic
800,
current, he said?
900. Yeah, it's almost perfectly tuned. And 1000, that's way overkill, it seems. But that's okay. Now I'm going to add 10 nanofarads, see if it diminishes further. Yes, it does. So I will turn all the 10 nanofarad switches on and I'll switch off 1 times 100 nanofarad. And then I'll reduce the 10 nanofarads to get it in tune. You see that the high voltage is being diminished because now all the displacement current is being fed into the high current coil.
So call me crazy, but I'm looking at this chart in the top left of the screen. And what he just said was the voltage was being diminished. The voltage was the yellow line. And he's right. The voltage did look like it dropped there. And he said it's being diminished because it's being pushed into the current, the green. So basically he's saying is that he's pulling the voltage out and he's actually using it as active, useful current, which is green. Which if that's true, wow.
And
people in the chat are confirming.
Tune it perfectly in tune. So around here. Yeah, this is the point where the yellow voltage is the lowest and the current is the highest, and they're both in phase. They're not perfectly in phase, but that is due to the current probe because it has a...
Okay, so you guys understand what in phase means. Let's go full screen here, chat. So you're going to learn what in phase means. So if the peaks and the troughs are lined up, then they're in phase. So that doesn't mean the peaks and the troughs have to be the same amplitude. The amplitude is how high the peak and the trough is. So the green peak is higher than the yellow peak. Doesn't matter. They're still in phase. Why are they in phase? Because the top of the peaks are lined up. If you were to draw a straight line, they're pretty much in phase with one another. That's how electrical engineering works. And now you should be asking yourself the question, why are we thinking in particles when we look at electricity, it's in waves. We measure everything in waves. That's how we're measuring electricity. We should be measuring everything in waves. Seems absurd that we, for some reason, decide everything's got to be particles.
Phase shift of minus 10 degrees at 70 kilocycles per second. That's only a small bit, but that explains why it doesn't look perfectly in tune. Now I can amplify the voltage again, but first I'll need to change the setting of the current to 2 amps per division. And now I'm going to push up the voltage, and together the current will go up. Like so, perfectly. Higher and higher. So I'm going to go up to the 400 volts level again.
So now he's increasing the voltage to use what he just
now the current is 2 amps per division. So we already have a lot of current flowing, 18 amps in total, peak to peak, which already is a very interesting result.
So the 18 amps, you can't really see it, but the top left here it says 18. The 1 is cut off.
So we have high voltage and high current. And this is what I explained in my previous video, but now we're going to introduce the impulse.
I mean, this seems pretty crazy, right? Like, this is pretty cool. If you understand electrical engineering, this is pretty cool. Because he essentially started where he had a voltage, the green line. Did I get the colors wrong? Or the yellow line? And then he added his current, and then he showed that if you align the phases up, you could see the green current eating the voltage. It was basically consuming the voltage. So people were asking, what made the voltage drop? Because the whole point was he's trying to use this reactive force to use it productively. And so he messes around with the phasing of it, and he can get this interaction to occur. And then what he's using is, I think, his impulse voltage, and he's going to increase that impulse voltage, and he's seeing that it's causing the other voltage, I don't know, there's 2 kind of voltages going on here, and the current to increase
to this system.
So now I think he's about to pulse the voltage, and we're going to see what occurs.
I can already show you the voltage on the output. If I would measure the voltage now together with the current on the output, then you would see that there is no current on the output. And that is simply because it is a open-ended coil. But we have voltage, we have 30 volts on the output. Actually, not that much, but it's interesting to see. I'll turn that one off again. The impulse is not present. We do see some voltage on the high current coil already, and that is around 70 volts peak to peak around that course. And that is the resonant voltage on the high current coil. The next part shows how I am able to phase shift the voltage of the impulse relative to the high voltage and how this affects the high voltage and current. Let's take a look at the impulse placement, how that works. This PCB has a push-pull driver circuit for the high voltage.
Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. This part went right over my head. He shows some cool graphs here, and this is also kind of like you can kind of see the wave chart here.
If the orange signal is high, the winding of the CMC is being charged with a magnetic field, and then when it turns low, the MOSFET is turned off and the impulse is being created. Now, this signal, I can change the duty.
So what we're really looking at here is you're looking at a baseline, and then you're looking at this I think we're looking at this magnetic field, like wind up, power up, and then power back down again. So you see it wind up, it's on, and then so like when you're looking at this chart here, right here, it's like it's off, and then it's winding up, and then it goes down again, and so you're kind of seeing this repetitive motion. So we're creating this pulse effect here. What did he? He's using a square impulse. Okay. Got it. Yeah, this is just a pulsed input. Okay, thank you.
Cycle, like so. Make it less.
Okay, so let's skip past this.
Impulse. Add the signal of the impulse, and you can see a lot of ringing starts to exist. Okay. I go further.
Okay, this is actually what I want to show.
And then
this is pretty neat just to watch this tuning right here. So watch closely.
It's still a prototype, but it is fully functional.
The full screen.
So I can reduce the duty cycle as I'm doing right now, and then I can just leave a gap only for the impulse to exist in, like so. If I go further, I will disrupt that impulse, and that is very interesting. As you can see, a lot of ringing starts to exist, and I rather not dare to go there right now.
So I don't know exactly what he's doing here. I'm trying to think of a good analogy of how to explain this, but it's like maybe it's like if you're pulling on a rope and you get to a part where there's like a knot, right? And it's like, oh, okay, well, wherever the knot is, that's where I'm going to stop. That's almost like what he's showing here. Where like for the few seconds before this, he can like pull. What's happening is he's phase shifting this orange line, and he can pull it back until he gets to the part where you can see the purple phase shift appear. So it's like he's lining up when the pulses are gonna go off. That's what he's really doing. It's like, when should I set the pulses off? And that's how you can phase shift something. And what you're doing is you're determining when something should happen in time.
The duty cycle, as I'm doing right now, disrupt that impulse. And that is very interesting. As you can see, a lot of ringing starts to exist, and I rather not dare to go there right now. So the duty cycle is adjusted to give the impulse just enough time to exist, and then the MOSFET turns on again. So now that is properly set. I can.
So here's another way to imagine it, right? Okay. So what are we trying to do? We're trying to power up. Let's say that this iPod, what are these called again? AirPods, whatever, earpods. Imagine this is like a magnet that we're charging up. So we're gonna shoot some pulsed voltage into our system, and it's gonna charge this magnet up. We want to charge this magnet up. We want to have the magnet then lose its charge and begin to lose its energy. We want to use that lost energy, and at the exact right moment, we want to start it back up again. We want a new pulse to go into it, and we want it to start the process back up again. We need that to be timed perfectly. And we need those pulses to go in the very moment that pulse leaves. We need the next pulse to be going in, ready to go in. And if that's lined up correctly, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about resonance. And that's what he's talking about when he's phase shifting it. What is he doing when he's phase shifting? He's saying, okay, don't start now. Wait. Okay, now. This is the moment I want you to start. And then to repeat the process every whatever wavelength. Okay? Yeah, it is. It's actually like the trampoline jump as well, where it's like if I'm double bouncing someone, okay, double bounce them now. Okay, wait 5 seconds, double bounce them now. Same concept. Yeah. And that's why a lot of this comes down to rhythm and music and math. Okay. Let's go back to this.
Take this away. Let's measure the signal of the push-pull again. So here we have the signal of the push-pull again in blue, and orange is that signal that drives the MOSFET for the impulse generation.
This is phase cycling.
And put it back on the high current coil again. Let me also remove all parallel capacity, so the magnetic current is not available. Let's create an impulse, like so. And now I can phase shift that impulse to anywhere on that voltage
This is
cycle.
pretty cool here as well.
So here's the maximum, that's where I wanted to have it, but I could also tune it to the 0 point, which is...
So you can see now he's doing the same phase shifting here. So now we have our all three input. We have our pulsed voltage, and now we're going to combine that with our overall system. And he's like, I can align that with my maximums so that all the peaks are lined up, or he's saying I can line it up with the 0 point, where the yellow line is actually through the 0, and that's where he's got it lined up right here as well. He's also going to say, well, I can line it up with the negative as well. And why is this big? Guys, this is probably the biggest part right here. Look at this graph. This is the same concept that you're going to use if you want to teleport something. Do you want to line it up with the positives? Do you want to line it up with the negatives? Do you want constructive interference or do you want destructive interference? Do you want to make your object disappear or do you want to make your object appear? Do you want to make something explode or do you want to absorb something? When I look at this, that's all I think about.
Here or to the negative maximum, which is here.
It's all waves. Everything
now,
is.
The best position is to match those maximum voltages exactly. Like
so he decides
so.
We need to match the maximum voltages. So he lines it up so that all of them are in phase.
It is perfectly tuned. Now, nothing
and
happens.
This is what tuning is. This is the same thing as when you're tuning your radio. That's what he's doing right here.
With the voltage, if I do not have the high current coil tuned. So I will now place my current probe on the high current coil again, and I will start to add some capacity.
Okay, here we go, chat.
Coil in parallel so that it will become resonant. And yeah, there it is. I think this is perfectly tuned. Now let's see what happens with that impulse. And there is the impulse.
Wow.
And immediately you see that the voltage is being diminished. So the voltage again is being used for something else. Better said, the displacement current is going to be
You can see the yellow, right? So you can see the yellow coming down. That's what he's saying.
Then you will see that the current will be amplified.
And so you can see in response, the current, which I guess is C4, the purple, is going up.
400 volts. A little bit more, a little bit less.
And then, oh, wow.
The amps now have risen.
What did you just say there on the comment? It says the high current coil now induces a voltage in the high voltage coil, which causes the yellow voltage to phase shift. That's why you saw the yellow voltage shift.
And the amps now have risen to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 6 times 5 is 30 amps. So that's a lot more than we had before. What you can also see is that the voltage has diminished again. We're only at 180 volts. So right now I can introduce more voltage to the system again.
Yeah, so the yellow here is the voltage, and you can see, so he was saying it was at 180, which is the number on the left. Probably hard for you guys to read there. So he's increasing the voltage again.
It's also good to see that the voltage and current now have become out of phase. And when I introduce more voltage again to the system, it will become more in phase. And the current is rising. So now we really have a lot of current flowing, nearly 50 amps. I'll push it a little bit higher even. This is almost 50 amps of current. Again, we see a small phase shift. I can adjust that by adjusting the phase of the impulse, but let's not do that for now. Let's just take a look at this system as it is. I'll take a shot of the power supply. We have 2.01.
So here's the power supply. Someone that can read power supplies. Oh, yeah, he's just going to say it. Let's see.
Amps at 13.5 volts for the impulse and 0.61 amps and 27.8 volts for the voltage. So that is without a load. The next experiment shows the voltage and
so chat like
current in a pure resistive impedance matched load. So this is my switch of the load. I'm going to turn it on. Now the load is...
Was that showing Overunity? Did I miss that? Yeah, 50 amps at 44 watts. Is that good? Let's ask chat. Let's ask chat Grok. Is 50 amps at 40 watts good? Is 50 amps at... Wait, well, how many watts was it? 44 watts. I'll just read it out. Oh, wait. I wish I understood electrical engineering better. 50 amps at 44 watts does not make sense for most practical applications due to the implied very low voltages. So, yeah. Sounds like it might be Overunity, chat. So, see? I told you guys, Free Energy Friday. Just yet another Overunity system right here. Now, let's be honest, chat. I can't even follow what's going on here, and I'm a pretty smart guy. Like, you've got to have you got to be pretty knowledgeable about engineering to understand even what's going on here, let alone to really understand the implications. And so this is part of the issue with, some of getting this information out to people.
Parallel with the grounded to earth output coil, which is in center.
Impedance matching. Step 1. Remove all capacity and connections from the high current coil. Step 2. Measure the inductance of the high current coil while it is placed in the stack of coils. Step 3. Calculate the inductive reactance of the high current coil. Step 4. Match the load resistance to the inductive reactance.
This 2.6 ohm load has the same resistance as the
Okay, so I'm not going to go into like how they do the impedance matching, but he's going to talk about how they do all the impedance matching, basically just configuring the whole thing to get it ready to go. So, because I think what he's trying to do here is I think he's trying to show that you can get this to work with a load. Because here's the next thing. It's like, okay, showing that you can amplify energy is great. Now, the next thing people are going to say, okay, well, show it power something. Show this free energy being able to be used for something. And I'm pretty sure that's what he's going with here next. Yeah, so this is what I was thinking. So 44 watts is small, but he made enough power to power a house with just 44 watts, starter watts. That's less than what it takes for a bulb, but you now have enough energy to power a house. This is one of the things is like there are multiple ways to achieve free energy. Amplification of energy is free energy. Where's the excess energy coming from? If I start with 1 unit of energy and now I have 10 units of energy, how did I do that? Amplification of energy implies free energy. There is no other explanation. If somebody can come up with one, please let me know. Unless your amplification has an input of the excess energy. Okay.
Again, yeah. Let me remove 100 nanofarad and add 10 nanofarad again. See if I can get the maximum current at this frequency. So I have 9 times 100 nanofarad and 10 times 10 nanofarad for this setup. And we have a small amount of output, but not much. There is some output, but it isn't much. Now, let me measure the current on the output. So I'm going to keep the system running. I'm just going to grab my current probe, take it off. Now it's 0 amps. And I'm going to grab my output coil on the load side.
You notice how it already starts to move up before it's even touching? Like, look closely at the lines here. Notice how the moment it even starts to get close, this shows that the energy is not in the wires. It's flowing through fields that the wires are creating. If you were to actually look at what the energy looks like, it would look like a fuzzy thing focused around the wire, but the energy itself is like just being conduited by the wires.
My output
look,
coil,
watch, see how
load side
it's not even on there yet. You can already start seeing it starting to bend
towards the load, the arrow of the probe. And yes, we do have current. It is already there. Let me reduce that voltage setting to 1 volts per division. Of course, this will be amplified when I introduce the impulse. But we can already see that they're pretty much in phase, just like we had the voltage and current in phase of the high voltage.
So the green and the yellow or the green and the orange are in phase.
Coil and the high current coil. So orange now is the voltage on the load, 2.6 ohm load, and green is the current on the load. Now let me put it back to the high current coil and put the sensitivity back to 1 amp. Now we're going to introduce the impulse again. I'll give it some power in blue, the impulse.
Okay, here we go. It's going to get good now.
And again, we can see the amplification.
Yep. So look at the purple
current, which also amplifies the output voltage. While the high voltage coil is being diminished. Now the impulse is around.
So the purple is being amplified. I believe I saw the orange getting amplified as well.
375 volts. Now I'm going to introduce more voltage to the system, but for that we'll need to have 2 volts per division on the output voltage. And let's put it to 2 amps per division on the current. I'm going up. And again, the voltage is rising on the high voltage coil in yellow. And together, a high current coil is also raising in voltage. Let me go a little bit higher.
Raising in current. He meant to say raising in current right there.
The edge of my capabilities for the high voltage because it's starting to spark over from the high voltages.
And so now he's just basically where he doesn't want it to like melt. So this is the big thing is like, the next question you would ask is you're looking at this and you're going, okay, you're showing me amplification of energy, of current. Well, keep it going. How far can you go? And the answer is you actually can't go that far, relatively speaking, is that we start to go much further and we start to overload our circuit. We start to melt our wires. The wires literally melt. So why is this important? This is important because what's the solution for that? No wires. Why are we using wires at all? The medium itself should be what we use as our circuit. Do you want to know what a really good medium for a circuit is, everybody? Plasma. Plasma is the best medium for a circuit. It's a uniform substance. I knew quantum gravity was going to be on it even before I mentioned it. There you go. Plasma doesn't need wires. Exactly. In a plasma, what do we need? We need superfluidity. That's what we need in our plasma. We need our plasma to act like one solid structure. One solid structure. If we can do that, then we can just kick this up even higher. Keep amplifying this. This is why when Jesse Michaels says, why does Ashton think that we can create a doomsday weapon? Look at what I'm showing you. Whether or not we can amplify energy is not a question. It's experimentally proven. We can amplify energy. The question is, what's the limit? How much can you push it? Because if you can push it far enough, you can do some pretty scary stuff.
Setting, I'm using 0.44 amps at 13.2 volts for the impulse generation. I'm using 0.7 amps for the high voltage coil with 8.3 volts for the high voltage.
Someone do the math, chat. Someone do the math.
So a little bit of power is being used.
So we're only using 11 watts of input power. That's it.
To generate all this.
11 watts is not a lot. Like some of these lights are like 60-watt lights that we've got.
While the load is on. Let's take a look at the separate individual signals. First of all, the impulse. So this impulse is around, I would say, 700 nanoseconds in duration. It has a maximum of around 400 volt. Now, the duty cycle of that MOSFET, I have placed it in such a way that it turns off when the impulse is generated, of course, but it turns immediately on after the voltage impulse has become 0 again.
So now he's just explaining, like, when do you pulse it? So he's like, okay, once the input goes back to 0, I hit the pulse back on again. And this is what I'm talking to you guys, where I've mentioned many times, like, how do you create a free energy device? A lot of it comes down to resonance and frequency. I would argue, and I haven't actually created my own device, but that this is the tuning that you would do to turn your magnetic motor into Overunity. is that this is what you need. This is the reason why you can't just build a magnetic motor. If you don't understand what I'm explaining or what this video is showing to you, that Master Evo here is explaining to you, then you're never going to be able to produce Overunity, not with a magnetic motor. You can't just build it. You got to understand these concepts. You have to understand how to tune your system so that it amplifies energy, and then you're harnessing that energy.
Let's take a look at the output voltage. We now have around 12 volts of output voltage, and the current in the high current coil is around, let's say, 9 amps, and the high voltage coil is now around 420 volts peak to peak. But again, that is capacitive coupled, so that is not the true voltage, which will be sensitivity. This is 1 amp per division, so we have 4 amps peak to peak in the output of 2.6 ohms. I could make a calculation for this, which is a very crude calculation. I'm just using it to multiply the voltage and the current. We have a little bit more, I said 12 watts of power, something like that. So it's not a lot, but it's there. Also, what we notice is it is not in phase exactly. And we should be able to get it perfectly in phase and get more power out. But it wouldn't make a very big difference because this is not sufficient yet to get a properly working generator. But it's very interesting to see that it is possible to tune such a system into generating real power in an output. Conclusion. I demonstrated the tuning process of the high voltage and high current series parallel coils, and to place the positive voltage impulse on the positive voltage maximum of the high voltage coil, and that amplifies the magnetic current. This system produces a strong displacement current between the coils that act as capacitor plates. And the impulse is interacting with that displacement current so that it in turn amplifies the magnetic field energy flow. And I showed you that
Guys, what he just said right there probably would break a lot of physicists' minds and a lot of electricians and electrical engineers' minds. I'm actually surprised when I read through the comments on here. I'm not hearing more people trying to call bullshit on what he's saying right here. I mean, it's basically like, hey, you can set up your circuit in such a way where you can abuse the magnetic field collapse and then use that to power and get real energy out of that with the right circuit design. I'm just going to repeat the last like 30 seconds. Where are we at? 31.
voltage output. Conclusion.
So conclusion. Here we go, guys. One more time. Let's go full screen.
I demonstrated the tuning process of the high voltage and high current series parallel coils.
Okay, so he showed us how to tune it, right? We watched how to tune it. Everybody who's watched this live stream, you all understand what phase means now, right? If I tell you guys how to get something in phase, you guys know what that means. I'm going to test you later. Anyone who fails the test, mandatory DEI training.
And to place the positive voltage impulse on the positive voltage maximum of the high voltage coil.
And then he said also, you want to put the maximums, you want to line them up so the maximums are lined up, at least with this particular circuit design.
And that amplifies the magnetic current. This system.
And when you do that, that amplifies the magnetic current. That's very important. So when we have them lined up at their maximums, it amplifies the magnetic current.
And produces a strong displacement current between the coils.
And then because of early on, what time is it? 31:14. Okay, so remember early on when he showed us this design, the displacement current between the coils. Look at the two coils here at the top of the screen. This is what he's abusing right here. So he's like, hey, if I create this amplification of magnetic coil here, it's going to impact the one on the other side. The one on the other side is going to be impacted. So this is what I mean in terms of like smart circuit design. So some of you, I don't know where my Minecraft players are at out there, where my Minecraft bros, my dudes who are chopping the wood and chopping the irons. We need you guys, the ones who can make those weird redstone things that like automate stuff. We need you doing electrical engineering, making free energy devices for us. Away with the Minecraft. Bring on the free energy devices. Thank you very much ahead of time.
between the coils that act as capacitor plates. And the impulse is interacting with that displacement current so that it in turn amplifies the magnetic field energy flow. And I showed you that an output is being generated in a purely resistive load, whereby the voltage and the current are more or less in phase.
So an output is being generated in a purely resistive load. Let me repeat that. An output is being generated in a purely resistive load. So I want to make sure that people, my electrical engineers and electricians probably understand what I just said there. It's a pretty incredible claim.
But no gain in power is created yet. For this, I need a next step. Please subscribe and get notified for my next video to see what happens.
Okay, chat. Well, it sounds like we've got our next Free Energy Friday topic at hand. So for my people who wanted some physics tonight, I hope you enjoyed it. Check out that Russian thruster that is out there, plasma thruster. That might be another clue to the ether, to 0 point energy and what's going on. Take a look at the other EM drives, impossible drives. I think there's a company called IVO or something like that has another Q thruster test that's coming up soon. Rest in peace to Harold Malgrim. Check out the Dave Rossi interview on Jesse Michaels. And then, guys, big shout out. Actually, Nick Pope. If I've said the wrong Nick Pope, Sunday, Hard Truths, the dark side of UFO disclosure. I chatted with legendary UFO researcher who worked with the UK government as a contractor to research UFOs, Nick Pope. We discuss 0 point energy, the implications of free energy. We discuss all the craziest theories around aliens and non-human intelligence. It's going to be a wild conversation on Sunday, everybody. So come check it out. Come interact with me in the chat. Thank you, everybody. And let's talk again soon. See you guys on Sunday. Peace, MH270X. Love y'all. Later.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole, flow energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole, flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers in the lab they play, generating forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. Thin shell formalism plates so fine, spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread. talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow. From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear.